Puppies grow fast and their bodies learn from each meal. But there is a mistake that almost everyone makes. They start natural food on the plate and not on the intestine. In this video, you will understand the most forgotten and most important step of natural feeding for puppies. Find out how to prepare your dog's or cat's body for the transition, what ingredients to use in the early stages, and how to adjust the proportions for strong, balanced, and healthy growth. This isn't just a guide to food, it's about how love and care become science, and how a simple adjustment can change your pet's life forever. Subscribe and follow the next videos about BARF and natural food. Before they even learn to run, puppies are already developing something that will define their entire health for many years to come: the digestive system. It is where the true balance between immunity, energy, and growth begins. And this is precisely where most tutors go wrong, believing that it is enough to offer natural and fresh food to ensure a good start. But natural feeding for puppies requires almost surgical precision. The first months of life are like a work in progress. Bones, muscles, organs, and even the intestinal flora are being shaped. Every mistake at this stage, an excess of protein, a lack of calcium, or the lack of an essential supplement, can have consequences that only appear in adulthood. Joint problems, irregular growth, fragile teeth, unstable immunity. Everything can be born from the same point, a transition made in a hurry. To understand why, it is necessary to look from the inside out. A puppy's stomach is small, the intestine does not yet have the microbiota completely formed, and digestive enzymes are in the process of adapting. When the owner decides to start natural feeding, or BARF, without respecting this phase, the animal's body is simply not prepared to process raw proteins, crushed bones, or animal fats in large quantities. The result? Constant diarrhea, malabsorption, and weight loss, the exact opposite of what was expected from a natural diet. But that doesn't mean puppies can't have a natural diet. Quite the opposite. They are the ones who benefit the most from it, as long as it is done correctly. What almost everyone forgets is that the transition needs to start with the intestine, not the plate. It is the balance of the intestinal flora that dictates how the body will react to the new type of food. Veterinarians specializing in natural nutrition explain that the first step should be bowel preparation. Before changing the menu, it is essential to introduce specific probiotics and prebiotics, gradually adjusting the puppy's microbiome. This process of educating the gut takes on average 2 to 3 weeks, and is the building block that ensures the body accepts the new type of nutrition without metabolic shocks. At this stage, the introduction of natural foods should be almost symbolic. Small portions of light meats such as chicken and turkey, cooked lightly, accompanied by simple and crushed vegetables such as pumpkin and chayote. The goal is not to nourish completely, but to train the body to absorb. It's like teaching a newborn to walk. First balance, then step. Another point that few know is the importance of calcium and phosphorus. The correct ratio between these two minerals is one of the pillars of the natural diet of puppies. Too much calcium can compromise bone growth. Lack of phosphorus can generate muscle weakness. This ratio needs to be adjusted based on weight, age, and stage of growth, under professional guidance. The most common mistakes happen right here. Many tutors read ready-made recipes on the internet and believe that it is enough to follow the quantities. But each puppy is a unique organism. What works for an 8-week-old golden retriever can be disastrous for a Spitz or a small cat. Nature is perfect, but a puppy's body is delicate. Before changing what he eats, you need to change how he absorbs it. It is this detail, invisible, silent, and forgotten, that separates healthy growth from a life full of limitations. And that's why the first step should never be meat. The first step must be internal balance. When the intestine finally adapts and the body begins to respond well, the second great challenge of natural food for puppies arises: the balance between energy and structure. Puppies are true growing machines. They burn energy with each movement, but at the same time, they need to build muscles, bones, and tissues proportionally. At this point, the most common mistake is overfeeding. Enthusiastic owners, believing that the natural diet is lighter, end up increasing the portions to compensate. The result is an excess of subcutaneous fat and overload on the liver and pancreas, organs that are still developing. Well-formulated natural food for puppies is not synonymous with abundance. It is synonymous with precision. Experts in animal nutrition explain that each meal must respect 3 principles. 1. Daily energy balance. The puppy needs enough calories to sustain growth, but without generating glucose spikes that can alter metabolism. 2. Ratio between protein, fat, and fiber. Protein is the building block, but fat is the fuel. Fiber, on the other hand, regulates digestion and controls absorption. 3. Functional hydration. Natural food contains more water than dry food, and this completely changes kidney function. In the BARF, biologically appropriate raw food format, the ideal proportion is usually around 70% meat, 10% meaty bones, 10% offal, and 10% vegetables. But these numbers vary according to the species, the breed, and especially the stage of development. A Labrador puppy, for example, has a much higher calcium and protein demand than a poodle puppy. A kitten, on the other hand, by nature a strict carnivore, needs taurine and fats of animal origin at levels that a dog would never tolerate. That's why personalization is at the heart of natural food. And what almost no one talks about is that the digestion of the puppies changes every 2 weeks. Yes, enzymes, stomach size, and even the speed of metabolism change with growth. Therefore, a diet formulated at 2 months needs to be reevaluated at 3, and again at 4. Ignoring these phases is like feeding a human newborn with adult food. It even swallows, but the body doesn't know what to do with it. This is why ready-made natural diets, sold as universal, rarely work on puppies. They do not keep up with the real pace of development. Another crucial detail is the type of protein. At this stage, white meats are more tolerable, especially chicken, rabbit, and fish. Red meat can be introduced later, but in small amounts to avoid liver overload and increased uric acid. Offal, rich in iron and vitamin A, should be used in moderation, once or twice a week, never daily. Vegetables, in turn, have a supporting role. Lightly cooked pumpkin, carrots, spinach, and broccoli help the gut learn to work in tandem with the immune system. No spices, no salt, no common vegetable oils. If the owner wants to introduce good fats, the ideal is coconut oil in small amounts or krill oil, excellent for cognitive development and coat shine. It is at this point that natural food ceases to be just an effective choice and becomes an act of science. The tutor is not just feeding. He is programming the animal's biological future. So every spoonful, every proportion, and every ingredient counts. And the most curious, the more natural the diet, the more complex the responsibility of the offerer. With the body adapted and the nutritional plan adjusted, the most decisive moment arrives, the one that defines whether natural food will become a lasting success or a silent mistake. The accompaniment. Because contrary to what many think, a puppy's body does not respond with words. He speaks with his fur, with his feces, with his appetite, and with his gaze. And it is in this biological silence that most tutors get lost. The first sign that something is wrong appears in the hair. An opaque, dull coat is a cry from the body saying that it lacks essential fats and amino acids. Excessive hair loss can indicate zinc or biotin deficiency. On the other hand, when balance is achieved, the result is visible in a few weeks. The puppy becomes more active, the coat gains color and density, and the gaze becomes more awake, a direct reflection of a well-nourished brain. But the gaze is only the surface. Inside the body, metabolism is transforming. The exchange of industrialized food for natural food reduces the inflammatory load, improves liver function, and stabilizes urinary pH. That means fewer skin problems, fewer acid tears, fewer recurring infections. Puppies that grow on well-conducted natural feeding often have stronger joints, cleaner teeth, and a naturally more stable immunity. The secret is in constancy. The tutor needs to understand that the animal's body changes daily, and the diet needs to follow. Therefore, the ideal is to reevaluate the formulation every 30 days in the first 6 months of life. This accompaniment is not a luxury, it is a necessity. A small adjustment in the proportion of fat or in the amount of viscera can make the difference between a healthy development and a nutritional deficiency. Another forgotten point is hydration. When a puppy starts to feed on raw or fresh food, the body starts to absorb some of the water from the food itself. But even so, the liquid intake needs to be monitored. Puppies on a natural diet tend to drink less water, and this confuses many owners. The ideal is to observe the urine volume and the color of the urine. If it is clear, the balance is good. If it gets dark, the body is asking for more fluid. An effective trick is to offer cubes of frozen natural broth, made with bones, meats, and cooked vegetables, between meals. This maintains hydration without straining the digestive system. However, the biggest mistake remains the same: believing that natural means free from rules. Natural food is pure science, disguised as simplicity. The difference is that instead of being made by a machine, it is made by the hands of the tutor, and each hand prints a result. That's why experts reinforce a natural diet without calculus is just as risky as a low-quality feed. The growing organism is a delicate cog, and any deviation, even a small one, can have permanent consequences. The reward, however, is proportional. When the owner does everything correctly, the return is impressive. More vitality, harmonic growth, constant energy, and a deeper connection between the animal and the owner. Because feeding correctly is also understanding the rhythm of life that is formed, and it is precisely in this invisible connection that the true meaning of natural food resides. The trust between those who offer and those who trust to live. When natural feeding is done consciously, something changes, not only in the puppy's body but in the bond between it and the one who feeds it. The act of preparing each meal becomes a silent ritual, where every cut of meat, every gram of vegetable, and every spoonful of oil becomes a way of saying, "I care about your life." And it is precisely in this simple gesture that the difference between feeding and nourishing is revealed. Feeding is just keeping alive. To nurture is to build, strengthen, and protect, even when the other is still too small to understand. The step that almost everyone forgets, the one that seems too small and too technical, is the same one that defines a puppy's future: preparing the body before the move. Without this step, the intestine does not understand what it receives, the blood does not distribute what it absorbs, and the body does not transform the food into growth. It is like trying to light a flame without a fuse. There is fire, there is fuel, but the link that unites the two is missing. Veterinarians who follow generations of dogs and cats raised on a natural diet usually report something curious. Puppies that start natural food correctly tend to age more slowly. Vitality is prolonged, joints remain strong, and even behavior changes. Less anxiety, less compulsions, more focus. All of this starts at a single point: the balanced intestine. Therefore, before mixing meat, bones, and vegetables, it is necessary to build the ground where health will be born. Probiotics, prebiotics, gradual adjustments, and patience. It is this invisible basis that transforms the natural into functional. And most importantly, a puppy's body learns what the tutor teaches. If he learns balance, he grows in harmony. If you learn excess, you grow in imbalance. Many owners fall in love with the idea of BARF, but forget that nature is not a shortcut. It is a process. Human haste is what hurts animals the most. Nature, on the other hand, is exact, patient, and silent. If the owner respects this rhythm, the result is more than a healthy dog or cat. It is a companion that carries vitality, stability, and a serene energy that reflects the care received. After all, a balanced body is just the mirror of a balanced routine. The mistake that almost everyone makes is to see natural food as a trend. But for those who understand life, it is a commitment. A commitment to time, to health, and to love in its simplest form: care. Because in the end, the secret is not in the food. It is in how the tutor offers it. And this is the step that turns every meal into a life choice.